Hello and welcome to TVB News. Beijing and Tokyo have reached a consensus over the discharge of treated nuclear contaminated water from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the ocean after multiple rounds of talks since August last year. A long-term international monitoring arrangement will be in place with China and other stakeholders having a strong influence. Danny Zhou has the story.
To address environmental concerns, Japan has vowed to conduct continuous evaluations of the impact on the marine ecosystem and fulfill its obligations under international law. Both China and Japan have agreed to continue constructive dialogue based on science and set up a long-term international monitoring arrangement within the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA. The arrangement will allow stakeholders to conduct independent sampling and monitoring, as well as inter-laboratory comparisons. IAEA will work with Japan to carry out the early implementation of the additional monitoring measures under its framework. In a phone call with IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida pledged to ensure the safety of the discharged wastewater and explain their efforts to the international community with high levels of transparency. Since August the 24th, 2023, the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant has poured around 63,000 tons of radioactive wastewater into the Pacific. China repeatedly condemned Tokyo's move and has since announced a blanket ban on all aquatic imports from Japan over food safety concerns. Mao Ning, a spokesperson for the foreign ministry, stressed that independent sampling should be conducted first before China gradually resumes imports that meet regulatory standards. But still, she said, Beijing remains opposed to Japan's nuclear water release. China's state media reported Japan will help China obtain comprehensive, true and effective data in a timely manner and prevent discharges that fail to meet the standards. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Some local Japanese restaurants hope the city will loosen its ban on aquatic products imported from 10 Japanese prefectures, including Tokyo and Chiba. But some lawmakers say authorities should prioritize food safety. This, as some Japanese restaurants said, they experienced a 50% drop in business after the government implemented the restrictions more than a year ago. However, lawmakers such as Stephen Ho from the Agriculture and Fisheries constituency believes the city should follow the mainland's example of ensuring food safety before relaxing any bans. Ho added food products originated from restricted regions must first fulfill sufficient safety requirements, and that the government can always adjust its measures later. The 27th Beijing-Hong Kong Economic Cooperation Symposium and the Beijing-Hong Kong Cooperation Promotion Conference kicked off in the nation's capital today with a session featuring Invest Hong Kong for the first time. 40 collaboration projects will be signed with a combined investment of over 60 billion yuan. Sakura Ip has more.
The 27th Beijing-Hong Kong Economic Cooperation Symposium and the Beijing-Hong Kong Cooperation Promotion Conference began today at Beijing's International Center for Science and Technology Innovation. Centered on the theme of complementing one another to achieve shared prosperity, this year's symposium featured an Invest Hong Kong themed promotion event for the first time. A total of 40 projects will be signed, spanning 12 sectors, including technology services, finance and biotechnology, with a combined investment of 60.98 billion yuan. At the opening ceremony, Zhou Ji, Deputy Director of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office of the State Council, highlighted the central government's high expectations for Hong Kong's unique advantages in advancing reforms and modernization. Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee noted the city has invested nearly 1.36 trillion in Beijing, accounting for over 65% of the capital's external investments. In a related development, the Hong Kong SAR government signed a cooperation agreement on new industrialization initiative with the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology. The Hong Kong Productivity Council will establish an accelerator center in collaboration with Zhongguan Tun Science Park.
Hong Kong has the multinational background, which allows all those Chinese products who is in compliance with China standard, but it may not be in compliance with the international standard, for example, like the EU standard or US standard. So we are there to support them and provide the right service to all these companies for them to go international.
The symposium this year features 15 thematic promotion events and other supporting activities to facilitate cooperation between enterprise of Beijing and Hong Kong. Sakarib, TVB News, Beijing.
The National Day fireworks display featuring Chinese elements is set to take place at Victoria Harbour on October 1st at 9 p.m. The 28-minute performance will see pandas and marks the 75th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. A drone show will be part of the event for the first time ever. Timothy Lee reports.
With the theme of this year's National Day fireworks display being Prosperous Fireworks Glorifying the Motherland, the show will be split into 8 scenes. The first scene will depict a red 5-pointed star in a bauhinia, symbolizing Hong Kong's dependence on the motherland for its future. There will also be scenes of smiles and hearts, as well as bamboo symbolizing the welcoming of giant pandas to the city. The fireworks display will last for a total of 23 minutes, during which more than 31,000 fireworks will be fired into the air from 9 vessels. Prior to the performance, a 5-minute drone show will create scenes of giant pandas in the night sky. The number 75 will be on display to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. This year's display is sponsored by the Hong Kong Chinese Importers and Exporters Association with a budget of $18 million. Organizers hope the gala will attract more tourists to stay overnight in the city. Meanwhile, residents can also enjoy visiting the Palace Museum for longer hours during the National Day period. The museum will extend its opening hours between October 2nd and 7th and remain open to the public from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
A 58-year-old man was sentenced to 14 months imprisonment over sedition for having made videos with protest slogans and uploading them on various social media platforms. Defendant Ao Kin Wai pleaded guilty to knowingly publishing materials with seditious intent under the National Security Ordinance earlier. At the West Kowloon Magistracy, the judges heard that from March to June this year, the defendant published a total of 239 seditious statements, pictures, or videos on 4 social media platforms. Former head of Macau's Court of Final Appeal, Sam Ho Fai, was confirmed as a candidate running for the post of Macau's chief executive. The Election Affairs Commission issued a notice in the morning to confirm the candidacy. It cleared an admissibility review for him 2 days earlier after Sam secured more than 380 nominations from the 400-strong CE committee. 62-year-old Sam Ho Fai will be the only candidate in the election of the 6th chief executive of Macau. He will present his campaign platform with a Q&A session on the 28th of this month. All 400 members of the election committee have been invited to attend. The chief executive election will be held on the 13th of next month. Welcome back. The European Union pledged billions of euros for flood-hit countries. 24 people have died across Central and Eastern Europe, and several governments have called on the army to help them battle rising water levels. David Garrett reports.
A man rowing along a river in Hungary, or so it seems, but this was a road for cars just a few days ago, now only traversable by boat, and the waters are still rising. The government have mobilised the army to assist those living around the Danube Bend in northern Hungary. The capital has not been spared, with parliament partially submerged. Heavy rain has lashed several countries in Eastern and Central Europe. Also, Italy, Austria, Slovakia and the Czech Republic have been hit hard. Czechs speak of waves going past their windows, torrents of water sweeping away bridges and some buildings. Water is receding, revealing the scale of the wreckage. The clean-up is beginning, although hundreds are still living in shelters. Helicopters have dropped aid, but this woman says they need more. Mirka says her brother had to ask friends for money. More cash is about to flow into flooded European nations. Ursula von der Leyen saw firsthand how Polish people have been affected. The government in Warsaw issued its first ever state of natural emergency in the south. The European Commission chief says she found it heartbreaking and vowed to act, breaking open the EU Solidarity Fund.
Extraordinary times and extraordinary times need extraordinary measures. At first sight, 10 billion euros are possible to mobilize from the cohesion funds for the countries that are affected. This is an emergency.
Meanwhile, Western Europe is battling deadly forest blazes. The centre of Portugal has seen at least 100 separate fires in the worst spate since 2017. Lisbon, with foreign help, has assembled its largest firefighting force ever. Many fires are now easing, leaving a scorched and smouldering landscape with over 30,000 acres suffering damage. David Garrett, TVB News.
The EU's chief has promised a 35 billion euro loan as she visits Ukraine. It goes alongside millions in aid for energy to help the war-ravaged nation through the freezing winter. Ursula von der Leyen, arriving by train, pledged a massive lending scheme. The money is part of a wider plan among G7 nations. Much of the cash is coming from the proceeds of Russian-held assets. The EU Commission president told Ukrainian officials Russia must pay for the destruction it caused. President Zelensky said Ukraine will use the loan for air defense, buying more weapons, and energy. Ukraine is not an EU member, although negotiations to join are underway. China remains the single largest source of tourists in Russia, with last year's Chinese visitor figures reaching 477,000. Some tourists said they found the transcontinental country safer than expected, despite concerns about the effects of the war. Some tour guides noted a significant drop in tourists after the COVID-19 pandemic and the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Timothy Lee tells us more.
St. Petersburg, Russia's second-largest city built along the Neva River, is known as the Venice of the North, for its glamorous Baroque and neoclassical architecture dominating its cityscape. With iconic landmarks such as St. Isaac's Cathedral, Church of the Savior on Spilled Blood, Kazan Cathedral, St. Peter and Paul Cathedral, and the Winter Palace, the city remains a major attraction for tourists, many of whom come from China. This tourist from Henan province said he has never been outside of China before and finds the city beautiful. He was surprised by the similarity of prices between China and St. Petersburg. Members of this 20-member Guangdong tour group had to pay only around $11,000 for a 9-day trip in Russia, which includes flight tickets and accommodation at 4-star hotels. This Zhuhai tourist said the nation is worth a visit, just for its deep history and beauty, adding that she was surprised by how safe it is. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2019, Chinese visitors to Russia numbered some 2.2 million. But some tour guides said there has been a drastic decline in tourists since the pandemic and the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This tour guide said before the two events he would organize 2 to 3 tours per month, but the figure has now dropped to just once or twice a month. Last year, some 477,000 Chinese tourists visited Russia. An association representing Russia's tourism services earlier announced in a report that the number of visitors that entered the country this summer tripled year on year, with those coming from China comprising 60 to 65%. Currently, mainland residents are still required to get a visa to enter Russia as individuals, but visas are not required if they travel via group tours. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Rotterdam in the Netherlands is reeling after a deadly knife attack killed one person and injured another. Dutch police have arrested a suspect who was also wounded. It happened near the city's Erasmus Bridge. Many emergency vehicles were quickly on the scene. A man shouting "God is great" in Arabic seemed to stab passers-by at random. Police say religious motives are part of the investigation. A witness managed to stop the attacker, who by this time was covered in blood. The personal trainer was able to bring down the assailant with a stick, hitting him in the face despite the attacker holding a long kitchen knife. Other people had attempted to thwart the knifeman by throwing furniture. Locally, in a move that illustrates Hong Kong's strength in arts and culture, Christie's unveiled its new Asia-Pacific headquarters in the SAR. The auction house said the city is the best place to transact art thanks to its free flow of capital, merchandise, and people. Jackie Lin spoke with Christie's representatives.
Christie's brand new Asia-Pacific headquarters at the Henderson in Central spans 50,000 square feet. 3 of its 4 floors are galleries. With its new headquarters, Christie's will host year-round sales and exhibitions in-house instead of at the Convention and Exhibition Center in Wan Chai every spring and autumn. They include the Outback Lane Chinese ceramic collection, which will also be part of the inaugural auction at the new HQ. Private inspections are available at the heart of a client's hub, where artworks can be perused more closely. And Claude Monet's seminal Nymphaea. Part of Monet's Water Lily series, this painting is presented in auction for the first time in the world after its inception 125 years ago. It has an estimated price of $200 to $280 million.
In 2024, we're celebrating 150 years of Impressionism, and the name of Impressionism comes from the Claude Monet. So what I'm inviting the audience to come is come and sit in front of the painting to see the brush strokes, to see the nature, to feel the light, to be part of Monet.
Christie said Hong Kong stands strong as a powerhouse in the global art market.
It's for us the best place to transact art. It's a free flow of capital, free flow of merchandise, free flow of people, and none of the other cities in Asia come even close to Hong Kong to be the place where we should base our headquarters.
Christie's believes the biggest challenge for them now is the overly cautious sellers rather than the lack of buyers.
We have consigners who are a bit hesitant, who may think it's not the best market to sell, but Asian collectors embrace new categories beyond Asian art, beyond contemporary and modern art, classic European art, and we see a very strong demand.
Meanwhile, auction house Sotheby's also opened its new flagship gallery in Central in July. Last year, Phillips Auction set up its new Asian headquarters, spanning 52,000 square feet in the West Kowloon Cultural District. Hong Kong is one of the top 3 art auction markets in the world. The government said the total trade in art, collectibles, and antiques in Hong Kong, including auction businesses, topped $105 billion last year. The number could rise further with the opening of Christie's new Asia-Pacific headquarters.
Before the official auction, the public can visit the galleries and view the artworks up close here between September 22nd and 26th. Advanced registration will be required. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.